This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. I have a lot of stuff to talk about today. A whole bunch of stuff. Eclectic, eccentric, you name it. All over the freaking map, you got it. So this past weekend, I was in Las Vegas. Have stage, will speak, audience there. I'm ready to go. And I give props to Tim Sykes for giving me a stage of 150 folks that were not there to hear about trend following. But you know what? It was all different walks of life, age, gender, race. And I really think people enjoyed the perspective that I gave them on finding an edge and trading, trend following, all these different things. And I did it in an interesting way. And I find, it's interesting, really. We talk about practice a lot, right? The more you get on stage, the more it just becomes easier. And I have to tell you, I sometimes hear people talk about being on stage and they want to feel a little nervous. I don't ever feel nervous anymore. I just want to give me an audience. I just want these interesting perspectives and views that make up my existence. This is what I want to get across. So I give props to Tim for giving me a stage. Anyways, this event was at the Hard Rock Hotel in Las Vegas, and which is excuse my French, is a shit show, I guess, as most hotels are in Vegas, but the Hard Rock is especially a shit show. And so anyways, in my hotel room, there was this guide or this little pamphlet from Affliction Clothing. And I have to admit, at some stage of the game, I did actually buy some Affliction t-shirts, and I actually wore them. I might have been partially insane, but I never owned anything by Ed Hardy. This Affliction pamphlet was in my hotel room, and there was a cover on it. And first I thought it was a Hard Rock thing, but it has to do with the clothing line. So it says, and this is the quote, it says, "The passion that drives us to reach for greatness. We are inspired by those who live fast and are willing to endure pain and suffering to push the limits of what is possible. You embrace the ideology of never say, I can't, but I'm the first who ever has. Your affliction makes you build when others buy." I just thought that was great. I mean, look, it's a kind of a silly little pamphlet to, push this kind of Hard Rock clothing line, and I'm sure a lot of people that perhaps read that really aren't doing that, but I thought it was great. Just that anybody that puts together some kind of motivational language that discusses passion, hey, you've got my attention. So anyways, I want to go through a couple quick things here at the beginning of just inspirations recently. Number one, Jiro Dreams of Sushi. Jiro Dreams of Sushi. This is the only 3-star Michelin sushi restaurant in the world in a subway Tokyo station run by an 85-year-old guy. And 3-star Michelin is the highest. Not that I'm some food snob. That's what they said in the film. So anyways, it's the highest. Great film. Absolutely about passion and practice. And, the most interesting thing I think he said in there, from my perspective, he was talking about kids leaving the house. And he was very blunt. Now, he was speaking in Japanese. It was translated to English. He was very blunt. He said, look, if your kid leaves the house, 18, 20, 25, whatever, if your kid leaves the house and comes back, the child will be a failure. No explanation, no long conversation, just blunt. If you leave the house and you come back, you'll be a failure. Watch this documentary, Dreams of Sushi. Yes, believe it or not, it has a tremendous amount to do with trend following. Next on the list, number 2, and I mentioned this at this speech that I gave on Saturday. People were asking about recommended books, and I gave them my book, but I also gave them the book which my yoga teacher had me read recently, called How Yoga Works. If you don't want to practice yoga, if you have no idea what yoga is, if you don't care about yoga, if you don't want to break a sweat, and you happen to be 200 pounds overweight, and all you like to do is drink Jack Black, smoke cigarettes, and maybe you've got a cocaine addict issue going on. Even if you have all those negative things going on in your life, trust me, if you want to be a better trend following trader, if that happens to be a goal of yours, the book, How Yoga Works, Michael Roach and Christy McNally, read this book. I just read this book. Well, you want to know what influences I have. This guy Michael Covel has. That's one. Now, this is an old one too, and I've mentioned this before. I'm getting ready to put together some kind of a journey. It's going to take me across Asia. I don't know how or exactly it's going to unfold. It's probably going to unfold fairly quick. I'm holding in my hands my inspiration, Investment Biker on the Road with Jim Rogers, his original Around the World on his, I think it was a BMW motorcycle. This was the book that really kind of inspired me about investing, even though Jim was very much in the fundamental space, the value investing space, big macro views, the notion of travel. And I don't want to recreate his journey. That's not my objective, but I need to be on a path, and I need to take the trend following world on the road. It's been a little while for a long misadventure for me. And so anyways, if you've not read this book, once again, the inspiration, now you might not be practicing what Jim Rogers speaks about in his book, but go find it. It's it's a little bit older book. Let me find that. What's the date on this thing? It is 1994. Wow, how time flies. Investment Biker on the Road with Jim Rogers. Read that book. Period. Do not pass go. Okay, first, all those little recommendations out of the way. Oh, two other things too before I make a bigger announcement. 2 new guests coming on in the next week to 10 days. Robert Greene, the author of The 48 Laws of Power. Fantastic book. Once again, another grab it. And also Peter Brandt, who wrote Diary of a Professional Commodity Trader. So both of those guests coming up. And so here's my big announcement that I have. My big announcement is this. I'm putting together an in-person seminar event for a select group, a selected small group of people. I will be sending out applications, and we will select this small group. Not everybody will be selected. I want to have a tight group. This will be for an event that I will be holding in Las Vegas on December 7th and 8th of this year at a hotel to be announced. The price tag, once you reach out to me and you go through, we'll definitely going to, when you reach out to me via email, and this is how you're going to get more information, you're going to send me an email, mike@covel.com. That's MIKE at COVEL.com, 1L. Send me an email. I will send you all the details. This is going to be all inclusive. So it's going to be one price tag, and you just need to get your rear end to Las Vegas. So the price tag will include the Friday night long dinner, all day Saturday session. Once again, this is December 7th and 8th. It will include the hotel room, all that fun stuff. You just got to fly and get there. That's the deal. And this is going to, now I will also have an associate or two of mine joining in the hedge fund space, the trend following hedge fund space. So it's going to be more than just myself. We're going to give a really, really well-rounded view of trend following. Now, what will you get at something like this? You're going to get, for the starters, both of our trend following trading systems, the dinosaur systems, the T-Rex and the Triceratops. Both of those are included. There is going to be a ton of extra materials, study guides, examples, hard copy materials, PDF materials, audio materials, video materials, much of this that I can't release or don't release to the public as of right now. So this is a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I've not put out. Some stuff that you're just never going to see anywhere else, especially some of the audio and video. And it's just some really, really cool stuff. I'll give more details in email. But once again, if you're interested, send me an email, mike@covel.com. And we will get you the application. And once again, it's going to be an all-in-one price included for everything. You just need to find a way to get to Las Vegas. And it will be held December 7th and 8th. And if you're not selected for that particular event, I'm going to start doing these on a fairly regular basis. Now, also, This is a little bit different than my one-on-one events. My one-on-one events are usually tailored to the specific needs of those individuals. This event is going to have a structured curriculum, a detailed timeline of what's going to happen during the course of the day. And, you're going to have time to ask questions and all that stuff. And it's going to be a small group. It's not going to be a large group. But it's going to be priced a little bit less than an in-person event that's one-on-one, since it is a small group of different people. But we're only going to pick people that, really make sense for this. And I think it'll be a good time. We'll get a chance to spend a lot of time together, and I think everyone will enjoy it. So once again, send me an email if you're interested, and we will get you those details as soon as possible. You will have to make your decision by November 1st. You got to get the app in by November 1st, and we're going to go ahead and decide who's attending by November 5th. And then once again, the event will be December 7th and 8th. Okay, all that kind of fun stuff out of the way. Let me jump into some of the stuff that has inspired me this week. And I guess, first off, some questions and some criticisms and some just overall pieces of data that came across my plate. So, starters, I posted a quote from trend following trader Larry Hite recently. And I said, his quote was, "People haven't changed. Things haven't changed because what is the fundamental thing in the markets? It's people." Well, a reader wrote me and said, Covel, what about the whole high frequency trading robot part? I had to think about that for a second. Well, I really didn't have to think about it. I was trying to put myself in his shoes. Well, and my response was, who programs the robots? Meaning, why do you care whether or not there's high frequency this or that? There's always been arbitrage trading. That's nothing new. Arbitrage trading doesn't stop trends. And the reality is, all of these high frequency trading algorithms and robots and this and that and servers next to the exchange servers, this is all done by people. These are systems programmed by people. There's a human element in it, regardless of whether or not it's on autopilot. So these things aren't creating themselves. And even if they were, who cares? There's still trends. I guess the real premise that he was trying to say is that the markets are going to go flatline forever. Well, if markets go flatline forever and go sideways forever, we're going to have a lot greater problem in markets and making money than just trend following alone. Because if markets go sideways forever, everyone's going to suffer. So anyways, I just thought that it was an interesting perspective from this guy, Ben, that somehow or another he thought that there really was, Larry Hite's saying nothing's changed because people are people and people are always going to greed and fear. And this guy was kind of thinking, well, no, all this programming and high frequency trading and robots, and somehow or another that's changed the game. It hasn't changed at all. So now I think this was forwarded to me, and I went and looked it up. I think it was on Amazon, and it was a critic. And I love critics, beat me up. But I think this was interesting to talk about because this gives a perspective that is beyond criticism. It's kind of misinformation. So the guy goes on to say this. He says, this is about one of my books. "A good conscience, especially an elevated consciousness of conscious, is worth more to me than all the money in the world. When I clumped Jack Schwager's books and Covel's books with the current top traders and fund managers, I realized after reading the book that I, and probably most people, would not be able to do this from a home computer with the typical technical and fundamental stuff, and I would also feel very uncomfortable doing what I call friend following, where some people work within exclusive non-public groups or networks and have access to non-public information and capital." Well, two big issues in that criticism. Now, if he wants to say, "Mike Covel, you are just an awful human being, and I just don't like you, and you make me upset, and I sweat profusely, and I have to go to the bathroom a lot, and my life is unhappy, and you make me miserable, and and there are actually, I think there are some people like that. But if that's his criticism, that's fine. I really can't help him. Maybe he can go practice yoga or something. However, let's discuss the specifics of the factual aspects. So he says the average person can't do trend following with typical technical and fundamental stuff. Well, I don't know what that means. First off, trend following is not typical technical stuff. I don't even know what typical technical stuff means. Does that mean Elliott wave, Gann, Fibonacci, some kind of stuff like that? And by the way, that was brought up at that event that I was at on Saturday. And I told the one guy, I said, he brought that stuff up, and I said, listen, you'll have a much nicer life if you forget that the terms Elliott wave, Fibonacci, and Gann even exist. Just forget they exist from this point forward, and you'll have a nicer life. But anyways, and this guy goes, I'm back to the Amazon thing, and he guy says, and typical technical and fundamental stuff. How can you read one of my books and pay attention and think that I'm proposing the use of fundamental anything? It doesn't exist in one of the books. So I have to put myself in his shoes and think, well, how could he come to that conclusion? Well, maybe he didn't read the book. Anyways, going on where he calls it friend following. Once again, how could you read one of these trend following books where it specifically talks about you don't need access? You're not Warren Buffett with a bat phone line into the CEO of Goldman Sachs, or Warren Buffett calling up Obama or whoever is the president and saying, hey, I need a favor. It doesn't work that way with trend following. Remember, trend following is predicated on following price movements, okay? From wherever they come and whichever direction they're going, you're just following price movements. That's what you're doing. You're not trying to say, hey, I'm in a corn position right now, I'm in a gold position, and my friend at Goldman Sachs is going to help my gold position or corn position do better because he's my friend at Goldman Sachs. I don't even know how that works operationally. So once again, I welcome the criticism, and I'm sure there's someone sitting out there right now, Covel, you've got such thin skin. Can't you just listen to this criticism? And I can't believe you're responding. You know what? This is a conversation, okay? Everything is a conversation. Hear me on that, okay? I write books. I put information out there on a blog, on Facebook, etc. If people give feedback, I don't care how they give that feedback. They can write me an email, they can post on Facebook, they can write a review. The moment they do that, the conversation has started. Because let's be honest, it's really not about reviews, it's about a conversation. It's about a conversation. It's about, and if somebody wants to jump into my world and they want to have a conversation, and like I said, I'm not thin-skinned. If they want to, say, hey, this guy's the worst thing since, who knows what, fine. But when it comes to the factual stuff, I'm going to correct it. And hopefully I did that right there too. So anyways, I had one more guy too that I caught some video of, and he was criticizing trend following. He was criticizing some of my work. And once again, that's fine. And he goes on to say, this is where he differed with me. He said, well, I think a trend trader doesn't really care about long-term versus short-term. It doesn't really care about a 5-minute chart versus 10-minute charts or 1-hour charts or daily charts or monthly charts. That's 100% false. Okay? The difference between a 1-minute bar and a weekly bar is night and day. Trend following is not just equally applied over all time frames. It's just not. Okay, so anybody that says that, if somebody walks into the room and they say trend following, it can be applied to a 1-minute bar and a weekly bar. No, it can't. It can't. Anyone that says that is not telling you the truth. It's that simple. Anyways, this guy goes on to say, I'll give you an example. In recent news, as the time that we're doing this recording, everybody's just screaming and yelling about euros. Greeks are going to fall into the bottomless pit of despair. We're all going to die. Euros are going to blow up, and the euro's been falling. We just recently had on Friday a non-farm payroll report was released on the short-term charts. A trend developed on a very short-term 1-minute and 5-minute charts. A trend follower would obsess about the euro going down. A trend trader recognized. It's like fundamental trading. This isn't trend following. Trend follower is not obsessing about the euro going down. If the euro is going down, the trend following trader is short. He's not obsessing about it. He doesn't know why it's going down. So it's like the moment you see somebody talking about trend following trading and they start talking about the meaning of, payroll reports and news, Walk away. It's not trend following. It's something else. And you know what? It might be great for whatever he's doing. Maybe this person has tremendous insight, and that's fine. But let's keep definitions to a basic. Let's try and just keep things on the straight and narrow. And what I mean by that is, if 2 + 2 = 4, then just don't expect me to sit by if you come into the room and say 2 + 2 = 5. It equals 5, Mike. It equals 5, Mike. It's 5. It's 5. It's 5, Mike. It's 5. No, it's not. 2 + 2 = 4. There's got to be some basic foundational stuff that we all agree to, because you can't even have a conversation if you don't agree that there are some basics. So once again, and this guy goes on to talk about he's completely time frame agnostic. Look, if you're out there right now, and I mentioned earlier in this podcast, high frequency trading, if you are out there right now, sitting at your home, attempting to trade 1-minute bars, 5-minute bars, and you're trading against these major algorithm shops, these short-term high frequency shops, and this is what you're trying to do, masochistic? Do you enjoy the pain? I mean, do you just pull out the knife and draw blood and just cut yourself for no reason? I mean, really? This is not what you want to be doing. I guess I shouldn't be talking about cutting after I've already given a yoga recommendation book. But at this event over the weekend, I played that clip that I love from No Country for Old Men, where Javier Bardem is at the counter with the gas station attendant, and he basically is saying, look, I'm going to flip this coin. You got to call it. Your life depends on it. And the old guy behind the register, who's clearly been the old guy behind the register since he's in his 20s, who's just gone the easy path in life, is like, basically his life is flashing forward or flashing in front of him. He's thinking to himself, oh my God, this guy looks a tad bit dangerous. He wants me to call it. I don't know who he is. I don't know what's at stake. And the guy who's flipping the coin is saying, your life depends on it. And I said at the end of my presentation, I said, well, gosh, I guess I have to be careful here, because here I am trying to make a trend following point promoting a serial killer. And that got a good laugh. But it's a great film. It makes you think. I'm not promoting serial killer anything. But anyways, I think it's something to consider. So I want to jump into, as I wind this segment down, I want to jump into my favorite fundamental writer. He runs a fund, and I know he has a lot of systematic metrics and formulas that he uses fundamental data to make his investing decisions. His name is John Hussman, and he is not a trend-following trader, but what I like about John is that he seemingly, with his work, makes the case, or makes a nice case, for why trend following does work, even though I don't think it's his intention. And so anyways, he wrote this piece that you can get off my blog, and he goes on to say, and gosh, I'm not going to try and pronounce this name, but John goes on to say, quote, I've long been fascinated by the parallels between chess and finance. Years ago, I asked this high-ranking world chess champion what runs through her mind most frequently during matches. She answered with 2 questions. What is the opportunity, and what is threatened? Wow. Isn't that great? What is the opportunity, and what is threatened? What is threatened? That's back to the old Larry Hite mantra, like how much, don't worry about how much you can make. The only thing you can control is how much you can afford to lose. You know how much you can afford to lose. You can control that. I want to lose $5. I want to lose $10. I want to lose $1 million. You can control that number, and when you lose it, you get out, you're done. So once again, she says, what is the opportunity, and what is threatened? Hussman goes on to say, the final minutes of a chess game often go something like this. Each side has exhausted most of its pieces, and many of the pieces have great latitude for movement have been captured, leaving grand moves off the table. At that point, the game is often decided as a result of some seemingly small threat that was overlooked. Maybe a pawn, incorrectly dismissed as insignificant, has passed to the other side of the board where it stands to become a queen. Maybe one player has brought the king forward a bit earlier than seemed necessary, chipping away at the opponent's strength and quietly shifting the balance of power. Within a few moves, one of the players discovers that one of those overlooked, easily dismissed threats creates a situation from which it is impossible to escape or recover. End quote. Now, If you go to John's website and you read his piece, he also gives a bunch of systematic metrics for why he basically thinks that the current equity markets are in a massive negative environment. He doesn't tell exactly what he thinks is going to happen, but when he starts to put some of the major crash dates alongside of where he sees we are today, he basically says we're at the end game. And as he makes that chess analogy, he is saying that there really is there's nothing positive that he can see in the numbers. Now, he's looking at the fundamental numbers, but he says there's nothing positive he can see in the numbers in his world. And that's how he makes his decisions. That's how he makes his investing decisions. It's quite different than trend following. However, what I find really interesting about John's work is that the case that he makes, these often bearish views, seemingly dovetail or portend to future trend following performance. Meaning, as he points out the negative situation that equities are in historically by all these assorted fundamental metrics, it's interesting how it parallels to where trend followers are at. And so I say John Hussman, whether it's his intent or not, writes great missives on why trend following can excel. Because all of these environments that he describes that are terribly hard to predict the timing of and can be extreme outlier events, black swan events, where you wake up one day and you're like, damn, the ATM doesn't work and my life is ruined, right? It's a great foundation for why you should be considering the use of trend following trading. Like I said, I don't think it's his intent, and I've not discussed this with him, and I'm going to get him on the podcast one day. But anyways, I love that. He does also add in this particular piece this week, which I thought was great too. And I've seen this before from Hugh Hendry of Eclectica. And he's a fund manager out of London who also has a very similar John Hussman take on the fundamentals. Very bearish. And Hendry also seemingly makes the case for why trend following is a fine strategy in this world of chaos, in this world where we really can't predict a damn thing. Hendry makes the case, in my opinion, for why trend following is a fantastic strategy for anybody to use in a world like we see today. So here's the quote from Hendry. Quote, "Today the world is grotesquely distorted by the presence of fixed exchange rate regimes. There are two. There is the euro and there is the dollar, and there's the dollar. All of Europe has defaulted. There are many stakeholders in the European project. There are financial creditors, and then there are the citizens of Europe. Remarkably, the political economy of Europe is that the politicians chose to default on their spending obligations to their citizens in order to honor the pact with their financial creditors. So, of course, what we're seeing is that as time moves on, the politicians are being rejected. So when I look at Europe, the greatest source of inspiration I have is fiction. We have the longest serving prime minister, the prime minister of Luxembourg, Mr. Juncker, who is on record as having said that when, quote, when times get tough, you have to lie, end quote. The truth, and this is Hendry continuing, the truth is unpalatable to the political class, and that truth is that the scale and the magnitude of the problem is larger than their ability to respond, and it terrifies them. The reality is that you can't make up how bad it is, but it has precedent, and precedent perhaps offers us some navigation tools. Hendry continues, the number one rule in terms of looking after wealth is preserving that wealth. I think we are single-digit years away from the most profound market-clearing moment in 1932 or 1982, where you don't need smart guys or girls, you just need to be bold. The crisis started here. It went to Europe. We could see a hard landing in Asia, coinciding and indeed being encouraged by problems in Europe. And if you get those two events colliding, and given the lack of protection on such a scenario in Asia, then you would have another profound dislocation. And that's the point where you reach the bottom. And you don't need wise guys, you just need courage. Now, what he's really saying is the world's a mess. And we've got QE infinity. We have the Fed saying we'll take on everyone's debts and we're going to lower interest rates to zilch. Yes, this is Mike Covel reading a couple fundamental perspectives and offering a fundamental perspective about where we are at. Well, why do this? You do this so people can understand and they can come into my trend following world where I then say, John Hussman, Hugh Hendry, they laid out a case. I'm making some statements about the Fed and interest rates. So in the midst of all that uncertainty, in the midst of all that chaos, what can you do to effectively trade that? Because you can't predict any of it. The fundamentals don't really offer you any kind of a timing mechanism for entering and exiting or betting how much you're going to bet of your limited capital. You have limited capital, right? And I had that conversation with someone over the weekend. I was talking about, I challenged this one poor guy who was sitting in the front row about how much he would bet on each trade. What was the maximum percentage that he would bet on each trade? And if you haven't seen my dice roll video on YouTube, take a look at it because I brought that up. And I asked him, I said, well, what would you risk? I said, well, what if you got $100,000? How much would you risk? And he said 4%. Okay, 4%. I said, well, what happens if you get 10 losing trades in a row? You're down pretty heavy. And could you easily get 10 losing trades in a row? Sure. So 4% is a high number. It's a really high number. And it took him a little bit to kind of wrap his arms around the idea of like, hey, but he finally got it. And the audience got it. The audience was pretty excited about it. They got it. So once again, I can read these fundamental perspectives from Hussman, from Hendry. And I like the way they think because they clearly know that something is wrong. But from a strategy perspective, how do you follow along and make money in a world where fundamentals don't offer you hope on the timing, don't really help you? So how can you make money in that world? And the answer is trend following. It's unequivocally trend following. If you don't have trend following in your portfolio, I have to ask, what is wrong? What have you not yet understood? What have you not yet digested? And look, I can take blame for that. Maybe I've not yet explained it well enough for it to click with you. Maybe I've been too much in the clouds. Maybe I need to bring it down a notch. So I welcome the feedback. If there's anything that I'm saying in one of these podcasts and you're like, gosh, Mike, I don't know what the heck is going on. I don't get it. You passed me by. Or Mike, I get it. Either way, give me feedback. I want your emails. I'll use them online. I will walk through them as an example. So if you've got any questions or concerns about what I talk about, I want to hear from you. So the absolute best place to reach me is mike@covel.com, COVEL.com. And so I want to leave this whole podcast today, and I'm going to give some more information and a little trailer here after this as I sign out. But I love this verse, and I'm a big fan of Mr. Lennon. And as he says, people say I'm crazy doing what I'm doing. Well, they give me all kinds of warnings to save me from ruin. When I say that I'm okay, well, they look at me kind of strange. Surely you're not happy now. You no longer play the game. It is a game, folks. It's absolutely a game. It's a game that you don't want to be all clogged up emotionally about. You want to be clear-headed about this game. And you want to make the right moves. And there is an end game eventually. And I think the warning that John Hussman and Hugh Hendry are putting out there is that from their perspective, from a fundamental perspective, maybe they see an end game. Maybe they see some kind of an ending coming. I can't tell you that from a trend following perspective. I can tell you that trend following often goes through periods, cycles of gearing up and gearing down. And there's no doubt that trend following is chomping at the bit for a gear up. And if there was ever a moment in time where the unexpected trend following performance is about to burst through and surprise everyone, it's right about now. As I made the announcement early on, seminar, it's coming, December 7th and 8th. Long Friday night dinner, all day Saturday session in Las Vegas. Everything paid for except airfare. Get to the event, we take you from there. Myself and at least one other trend following associate of mine who runs a fund, we will be there. Small group. This is not a one-on-one event, so it'll be a very small group. There'll be a specific curriculum for the day. And you are going to learn a ton. You're going to learn an absolute ton. How do you do this? Send me an email. We'll get you the application. We will make our decisions for who is going to be selected for this event by, I guess you've got to have the application in by the end of November. We're going to make our decisions by the 5th of November, and the event will be on December 8th in Las Vegas. That's the deal. If you want to ask any questions, get more details, send me an email, mike@covel.com, Covel.com, mike@covel.com. Some more housekeeping stuff. If you like these podcasts and you want to support the process, help me out here. We got to pay the bills. I got audio engineer here. I got Steve here. He needs to be paid. He needs to eat. Okay? So I want to see some participation. How can you best participate to support the trend following cause? It's real simple. Buy a book. Write a review on Amazon. Go to iTunes. Write a review on iTunes. Send me an email. Give me some feedback that I can post that really struck you about these podcasts. If you want to go a step further, as I just mentioned, the seminar, but look, the flagship training, that has helped thousands of people over the years. Look, there's a lot of different ways that you can participate. There's a lot of different ways that you can get ahead. I mean, at the end of the day, probably my number one value to students is my teaching, is helping people get over the hump to get to a point where they can really understand how to make money in a terribly confusing and chaotic and unnerving environment. And that's where we're at today. And it's covering everything. That's my objective, is whether it's the systems, the psychology, the emotional control, it's all those different elements that go into the recipe of having success. And there is a recipe. Nurture trumps nature. It always does. This isn't about waking up and just having natural athletic talent. This is about working at it every day. And I help students to do that every day. So once again, seminar options, they're out there. You want more information? Drop me an email. The flagship training options. Join me. Thousands have. Reviews. I want to see participation. Keep me excited. Go on to Amazon. Go on to iTunes. Say something positive. Or repeat the hell out of me. I really don't care. Do something. Show some energy. I should calm down. I think I'm going to go do yoga for the rest of the day. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.